they want to attack Skylar?
Because it's strange.
Because all you did was hire someone, right?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of funny because now 2 of my 3 full-time staffers have been sued by the city of Sacramento. And wow. I think, again, it's part of why, and I don't want to repeat myself, so I'll back up. But I think that, I don't doubt that they're intimidated by him. I don't doubt that maybe there's folks who are fearful of him. What I doubt is whether it met a legal threshold as a threat. And what I proposed repeatedly was mediation, was conversations. I mean, myself and my staff who came in, who were also under litigation when they got hired, worked really hard to build relationships with folks because we wanted it to work. And I wanted the city to meet us halfway on that and recognize we have to be able to separate what is a feeling versus what is a fact. And the facts on the table were that Skylar posed no threat. So real safety feelings are important. As in any employer, I don't want staff to feel unsafe or uncomfortable, but there are mechanisms we could have put in place to try to mitigate and manage that were skipped over in this case because of the intensity of his political beliefs, which are beliefs I share. So this has really hit a nerve with the city over the last few months, as you all know, and I'll just name it. I mean, the House protests has really freaked people out. I've been repeatedly told I have a responsibility to condemn violence, and of course I condemn violence. Like, every time someone asks me that question, I'm like, of course I'm a socialist, right? Like, I don't want anybody to get hurt. So it's no problem for me to say that. But the problem comes when we start naming people as violent before they do anything, which I will own is a letter that I also signed when the protest was going to Howard's house. And I was convinced at that time that I needed to do that because he was an employee who felt threatened. And now looking back and seeing how I participated, at least in that step in what was happening, and now that I see the overall trend that I'm a part of, it's got to stop. It has to stop. It has to stop now. We've gone past the line and we need to correct. For the sake of a healthy government and a democracy, we need to correct. Yeah. Important to me because this could have been any of us, frankly. A lot of the evidence, if you haven't looked at their petition for the temporary restraining order, were retweets, were statements he made on a podcast, were the fact that he was standing at a protest, which is all First Amendment speech. At no point did they have evidence that he had made any direct threats. At no point did they have evidence that he had a pattern of behavior showing up at people's houses, a pattern of violence in his past that would lead us to believe that he was a threat. It was purely about his political positioning. At one point, one of the exhibits is actually a shirt that he was wearing for the Democratic Socialists of America, which is an organization that I belong to as well. So at some point, we have to say, you've gone too far. And I argue that this is a pattern of behavior that the city's embarked on, and I'm privileged to have the ability to fight back on behalf of Skylar, but honestly on behalf of all of us.
Can you name 3 things that the city and the community could be focused on right now?
Oh gosh.
Should be focused on.
We're in the middle of a massive heat wave and we have thousands of people on the street, for example. We have more and more projects getting built that nobody in this town is going to be able to afford. We have a massive economic crisis that is still being felt by a lot of people in our community who are facing potential shutoffs of power, potential issues with being able to afford to stay in the home that they've managed to cling on to through this pandemic. I mean, this is there's this really illustrated the schism, or the schism, sorry, that's not the right word, the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And I felt that, right? Sure, I was inconvenienced. I had to stay at home, but I had a home, I had my job, I had internet, I had food. I never had to worry about the physical threat that the whole other half of our community had to experience. And we have a lot to do if we're going to correct that, and we have a lot to do if we're going to prevent that from happening again.